Hey guys, welcome back to our videos. So this is the second video in today's lesson, and it is going to focus on rational and irrational emotions. So emotions give us knowledge that is both immediate and profound. And as we've discussed before, emotion is biological. It is closely linked to physical reaction, chemical, and muscular, as well as behavioral reaction. But before we consider physical and behavioral reactions, let's examine what happens in those cognitive moments just before we react. Although we tend to think of reason and emotion as two different things, in practice they are closely related to one another, and it is difficult to make a distinction between them. Rather than thinking of them as separate, it may be easier to consider them as a continuum. When you are solving a math problem, you are at one end of the continuum, and when you lose your temper, you are at the other end. Typically, though, we spend most of our lives in the middle, where there is a complex mixture of thoughts, reason, and feelings, emotion. The psychologist Antonio Damasio speculates that emotions help us to make rational decisions about things by narrowing down our options so that we can choose between a manageable number of them. If we didn't have emotions, we would be too overwhelmed by our options to make any decisions, reasonable or otherwise. Also, if we didn't have reason, we would be in a constant state of anxiety. After all, anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, or so the father of existentialism keeps telling us. So we need both emotion and reason to make decisions. If we are thinking of reason and emotion on a continuum, can emotions ever be reasonable? Well, Aristotle would say yes. He would say that anyone can be angry. That's easy. But to be angry with the right person to the right degree at the right time for the right purpose in the right way, that's not easy. Rational emotion is both appropriate and proportionate. An emotion is appropriate if it is relative to the real nature of the situation. If Fuzzbucket feels afraid of a lion that has burst into his apartment, this is an appropriate emotion. Lions are predators, and Fuzzbucket is bite size. Fuzzbucket's fear will prompt a fight or flight or freeze behavioral response. But if Fuzzbucket responded the same when faced with a sock, this would not be an appropriate emotional response, as the sock poses no threat, and therefore we would say that Fuzzbucket is experiencing an irrational emotion. To be a rational emotion, it must also be proportionate to the situation. If, after once eating a stink bug, Fuzzbucket felt disgust towards the idea of eating more stink bugs, this would be proportionate. But if after eating a stink bug, Fuzzbucket felt disgust for all food for the next week, this would not be proportionate. We would say he feels irrational disgust. Moreover, if he manifested this irrational emotion into his behaviors and therefore starved himself for a week, we would not only say his emotion is irrational, we would say his behavior is irrational. When it comes to irrational emotions, one of the most troublesome is the emotion of fear. This is because despite the fact that we are constantly in a state of risk assessment, we're kind of terrible at risk assessment. That's it for this video. Now I'd like you to go back to the PowerPoint where you're going to learn more about risk assessment and the 5 ways humans often mishandle fear. Thank you for watching.